So hello and welcome to another Halloween edition of Crawl Error. I'm Dan Taylor, and in this episode I'm joined by John Morabito, the SEO director of Stella Rising, New York. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon.
He's really got into character now. He really has stayed really still, and I've broken him. There we go. So without further ado, because I know I'm not who you come to see, John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And of course, as everyone's been saying all year, can you see my screen now? Okay. All right. So today we're going to be talking about brand keywords. So to start with, what are brand keywords? Branded keywords or brand keywords are those that either include your brand name or your product's names or your domain name or some combination thereof. The reason, and we're going to start to talk about why this is important now, the reason that this is important is because a brand is not a product or a promise or a feeling. It's the sum of all of the experiences you have with a company. So when we think about that first experience and what people see in Google search results, very often Google search is the first place that people experience your brand. And the question then becomes, what are we doing as SEOs to ensure the best experience? It almost becomes like a user experience discipline. If you've ever sort of done anything to try to enhance user experience in your website, think about the Google search results as an extension of that website, in that you're essentially trying to make sure that the searcher has the best experience start to finish. And that includes, of course, your branded terms. So the question then is, well, why, right? Why should we be optimizing for these? First off, they represent an owned audience. So many times we'll be working with brands that will come to us and be looking to spend millions of dollars to go out and generate brand awareness, to generate brand demand. But very seldom does the brand come to us with the preformed idea that they need to invest in making sure that what the user sees when they actually start to search them delivers a positive experience. And so this is where I think it's hugely important to consider your brand terms in terms of an overall holistic brand marketing strategy. The other thing is these convert much higher, obviously, than your other non-brand terms. So if you're not sort of looking at that very, very bottom of your funnel and ensuring, again, a positive user experience start to finish, you're definitely leaving some money on the table. So look at your high converting brand terms, look at the terms that tend to do really well in PPC campaigns for brand, and ensure that you are also delivering a very well thought out experience for people. Another reason why it's a good idea to spend time on these is the fact that these can be harder in general for competition to steal and own. So if you do see competition owning and stealing ranking positions away from you for branded terms, very often we see this as a content gap more so than an issue of authority or relevance for your website. Similarly, it's generally easy to go out and rank for branded terms if you're not presently. Again, I say that with a caveat because we're going to see some examples in my section of branded search horrors that list where other retailers or marketplace sellers might be outranking you, and that's a very real, very horrific problem. Aside from those types of instances, again, I come back to content gap. If you look at a brand, something like this brand shipping and returns policy, and you see some other person owning that conversation, it's very likely that you just haven't adequately provided that information on your website in a way that searchers can find or that Google can find. So think about sort of surfacing that type of information and closing those content gaps. The other stuff about, so those are sort of the very directly measurable aspects of why you should be thinking about branded search. On the other side of things, we have sort of a little bit things that sort of float out there in the ether a little bit more, like the idea that brand search has a connection to entity. So we really want Google to see not only our brand as an entity, but an entity that is connected to non-brand entities. So one of my favorite sort of examples of what I think was a brilliant attempt at kind of influencing this, at bare minimum, maybe just an attempt at influencing searcher behavior, was the series of Wayfair commercials from like 2015 or something like that. Will Reynolds actually was the one who called my attention to this. And the commercials would like show a person in their living room or something, and they'd be like, Wayfair my couch. And then they would literally show a search bar, Wayfair couch or Wayfair my couch, right? And so they're literally training their audience to go to the search results, plug in two entities, them and the thing that they sell. Think about ways that you can similarly impact entity and try to make it clear to Google. Like I've worked with or even include your entity in your name, right? Like headphone store, Audio 46 headphone store was like a deliberate naming attempt by me to put entity target term together. So these entity connections, I think, become important and we'll see this also within personalization, as well as your autocomplete results, right? So when you start to see suggested results, you maybe type in something like a non-brand term, and then you start to see brand terms. An example of this, if you type in WordPress SEO, of course, it was also at one point named WordPress SEO, but then you'll see Yoast. So is Yoast as a entity of its own tied to WordPress SEO as a separate entity? Again, I know the name used to be WordPress SEO, but this is sort of what we're scratching at here. And then, of course, as I mentioned, personalization. So the more people you have searching your brand coming to your website, and then they go and they search something non-brand that's related to your website, you are now more likely to come up higher in their search results based on the fact that they've previously visited and interacted with your website over other websites. So that, of course, is a great reason to make sure that you're delivering a positive user experience. So some common horrors. These are the types of things that I commonly experience when executing what we call our branded search audit. And I wrote an article about this. So if you search how to conduct a branded search audit for SEO, you'll get my article on this. And these are the types of things that you'll come into. So in short, what you want to do is search your top 10 branded queries and look at what the search results are giving you. So you're going to find things like out of stock products. You're going to find misinformation about your brand potentially. You might find unclaimed Google My Business or knowledge panels. You might find negative reviews, just general web spam. That's sort of more rare, but I've had that happen. Photos that are listed as your business, but are not actually your business. So this one, for a while, if you searched Stella Rising, which is the name of our agency, you would actually see a photo of some random guy's face. I don't know why he tagged it as Stella Rising. It was probably suggested via Google My Business, and he was on like an Android phone or something like that. It was like auto tagged. I don't know why, but this dude's face would appear in our knowledge panel when you would search our brand. So, if we weren't searching that stuff, who is searching it and who's dealing with it? So make sure you're checking. And we did fix that. The guy's face is gone now. Other brands, maybe even owning your people also ask boxes, answering questions about your brand that might even be wrong. And we found instances of that. Lackluster meta information. So at bare minimum, when you do this search and you look at your top 10 search results for branded queries, I'd be willing to bet that you're going to find 2 or 3 meta descriptions that you, upon reflection, think could be better written. And that is, of course, a valid place to start, even if you don't have anything more significant in terms of challenges. Featured snippets with incorrect info. I'm going to show you a horrific example of that in a moment. And then retailers, marketplace websites outranking you. As I mentioned before, that's not always like a quick fix, but it is one of the good reasons why you should be paying attention to branded search. And now, 5 examples of branded search horror. The first of which is for one of the brands that I've personally worked with, Everlane. So a search for Everlane contact info yields a featured snippet with no attributed result, or rather no attributed source, a phone number. Now this phone number, upon calling it, directs you to a voicemail. And on the voicemail, Vincent Price gives you an email address, which you then email for support. I'm going to climb out on a limb here and say this is probably not the type of user experience that people are looking for when they execute this query. And there's a lot that we could do to better that user experience by surfacing that information on the website. Another example of where this went off the rails is that the #1 ranking result page here actually has the title tag of help bar Everlane. Google is so desperate for relevant information on this page that they've taken it upon themselves to write us a nice title tag that actually makes more sense for this page than the one that we have there. Contact and FAQ. That's what the page encompasses. It has their FAQs, one of which is the contact information. So in this particular case, we did a little bit of jujitsu. We leaned into the wind. We used exactly what they wanted as the title tag, basically listening to what Google is saying. And then we also recommended that they incorporate their contact information on a separate page, because really that should be surfaced on its own page that has all of the information that you're looking for there. Another example, by the way, the reference needs some explanation here. So 404, also known as 404 Error Not Found, is a 2001 Hindi language psychological thriller film. It came up when I searched 404 Not Found horror. So Everlane Backpack used to show 18 of the top results. 18, that's a lot of results. 18 of them, 6 not found. So clearly not the user experience we're looking for. This is a literal minefield of 404 not found pages that we're asking our users to dig through when they're searching something that for us is one of our top 10 branded search terms. Mind you, this is a website with like 80% of their traffic coming from branded search. So, you know, no big deal, just a horrible user experience for a ton of people. Birchbox, this is another example of a teeny little problem that can be fixed by sort of unraveling the content gap. So Birchbox did not have a dedicated landing page which listed the countries that they shipped. They do ship to a number of different countries internationally. It's very specific which ones. My Subscription Addiction, clearly a reputable site, is the one owning the featured snippet for this term. Again, not because Google thinks they're the most relevant or the most authoritative, but because they have the answer in a clear, concise manner in a way that Google can parse it off the page. So introduce that to your client's website if that's the problem for you. Another example here, which is you know, truly horrific, is where we have a retailer like Sephora or a marketplace like Sephora outranking our brand. In this particular case, we see that Dr. Dennis Gross, the maker of this product, doesn't rank until the 3rd position. So this is something that clearly we want to try to work on. But unlike some of the other instances, this might be a little bit harder for us. Another instance is reputation. So for this dry bar search, dry bar near me, which is the second very popular term, for them reveals 3 Yelp listings. These Yelp listings all have below 3 stars, 3 or below stars. So really, this is by the way, years ago, they have been working on reputation management. We don't really partner with them anymore. So I assume that it's gotten much better since then, but this was sort of what led us to the idea of looking at reputation management as something that we're maybe spending a little bit more time on. And then lastly, well, actually not lastly, I have one more after this, but Stella Rising. So again, sometimes, you know, the cobbler's shoes, right? Or the cobbler's kid shoes, or however that goes, right? There's shoes and there's a guy who makes them or something. In this particular instance, it says that we're a subsidiary of Flying Point Digital, which just isn't true. Flying Point Digital was the agency that I worked at and was acquired by Stella Rising before, or by Women's Marketing, which then became Stella Rising. See, there's a whole history of this, which Google doesn't actually have in their knowledge graph. They have it wrong. And so there's a few different ways we can try to impact this. The first of which is a claim the knowledge panel, which includes having to send a photo of you being able to access the back end of your website, you being able to access the back end of social profiles, as well as you holding up a photo of your government ID next to your pearly whites. So I sent all of that information off to them, and now we're going to be able to claim that knowledge panel and control some of that information. In other sort of instances, you might want to look to other knowledge graph data sources like Crunchbase or Wikidata, or if you have it, a Wikipedia. Now, the last and perhaps most horrific is sometimes you don't even rank for your own brand name. So I did a search for SALT.agency because I was making fun of my own agency rankings. We have to poke some fun at Dan here. SALT.agency doesn't rank in the United States. Now, I tried some modifiers to make sure Google knew who I was talking about. So then I punched in SALT.agency, guy with sexy beard. And I just got these photos of guys with great beards. Nothing about Dan and his agency. So clearly sometimes we need to take into consideration not just where we rank, but how we're ranking for our branded terms. In this particular case, honestly, he does rank a little bit further down the page somewhere. And of course, if you put in SEO, they are the #1 ranking result for SALT SEO agency. So kudos to the SALT team for showing up really well for what they actually do. This was merely an example of where you want to pay attention to even something as simple as, are you coming up for your own brand name? So thank you for your time. If you're looking to find me or stay in contact with me, you can do so. You can follow me on Twitter. I will occasionally post funny stuff or information about SEO. And you can also reach out to me at jmorabito@stellarising.com. We do this thing where if you have a website and you want us to do SEO on it, I will audit it and I will tell you all of the horrors present within your website, and we can discuss how I can help you. That's it for me. Thanks, Dan.
No worries. Well, thank you. That's definitely the first one with that. And also I had a joke lined up from the start when you said like everything we've been saying over the past 6 months. Can you see my screen? Rather fitting with this being Halloween week. For the past 6 months, the entire world has just been commencing at one giant seance through Zoom of, can you hear me? Can you see me? Is anyone there?
Exactly.
But I thank you for your time, John, and for putting this talk together, and obviously, and also for embracing the spirit. Obviously, it's meant to be a bit of Halloween fun for SEO because of just how bad the year's been thus far, and for the costume. I'm going to be honest, I'll say this to the audience as well. If John walked past me in the street like that, I genuinely wouldn't actually recognise him. When I first joined the Zoom call, I was like, that is John. But then I had to double check. Yeah, he's really his character. I think he likes the long hair.
I do.
But anyway, thank you very much for your time, John. And
my pleasure.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you've enjoyed this one, make sure you check out all the other Halloween special editions of Crawl Hour that we've put out this Halloween week. And stay safe and have a good Halloween. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.